chair of the session will be Rajya Asatrian, I pronounced that right, and cybersecurity.
Hello, good afternoon. So today we spoke a lot about the sustainability of the NRANs in the EAP Connect region. And of course, for the sustainability, it's quite important to have state support and also to provide some advanced services to our user communities. But also it's important to provide this infrastructure in a secure way and also to attract to have some more user communities. And in our region, I believe that the digital libraries and cultural heritage organizations have some crucial need advanced networking infrastructures. And the first talk, which will be presented by Valentino Cavalli, it's quite important to understand the experience of our European colleagues, how they tackle with these issues, which will be very important for us in the terms of the knowledge transfer, because we are facing the same problem in our region. So the first presentation, the title of the first presentation is Research Libraries Supporting Open Science Across Europe, and the floor is yours, Valentino.
Okay, thank you very much, Crash. And first of all, I would like to, just a very small sort of personal episode that, I mean, I'm very happy and I feel at home here in Moldova. I was remembering this morning when, you know, I first had some conversation with some of you, and I had to look back at the time. It was actually at TNC in Malaga in 2009. So it's been a long time, and since then I've been in this country a few times, and as I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to see the way the EaPEC Connect project has actually made a big step change, and I think I would like to congratulate my former colleagues from Géant for the achievement. So without any further ado, because time is tight, let me say, start with what I intended to, so there are a few things I would like to say about LIBER. LIBER, I work as an open science officer for LIBER, which is the primary research libraries in Europe. It has a long story. It was founded in 1971, and we have more than 5 in the whole of Europe. Our members are as research libraries, so libraries that have research as the main focus, so university libraries, but we also have national libraries, which, as you know, are responsible for the cultural heritage of the countries, plus the special libraries, university consortia, but also individuals. More than 40 countries, members come from more than 40 countries, and 1/3 of the LIBER members are located in Southern and Eastern Europe. However, I did check our database just before moving here, and we have only one library from the EAP region, whereas there are more than 40 members from the neighboring countries, and I counted, you know, starting from Poland, Romania, down to Turkey. So if you think about it, 40 countries means approximately, 40 libraries means approximately 10% of our membership. I think we would like to try and increase our participation and partnerships in the region. We not only have a network of libraries, but we also work with other organizations in the area of support for library, open science, open access, research data, and you see some of our partners in that slide there. So together with libraries and partners, we aim to enable research which is world-class, is collaborative, it's international, primarily cross-discipline, and increasingly data-intensive and open. So just a couple of slides I have about the LIBER strategy, which was launched a couple of years ago. We have 3 main focus areas for libraries as platforms for scholarly communication, as hubs for digital skills and services, and has as partners in research infrastructures. So these are the sort of three key elements of the strategic ideas that LIBER has, and they want to promote their libraries community, in the next few years. One thing it's important to say is that libraries are, increasingly digital. I mean, especially when we talk about research libraries, forget about the sort of the idea of the stuffy, libraries with a lot of papers, but really things are more and more digital, and that's why for us open science is extremely important. Just a few things about the sort of the vision for 2022 research landscape in the future is where I think open access is the main form of publishing. And I will actually focus a lot more in the following of this presentation about open access. Research data is fair, which means that not everything can actually be open, but the important thing is that data can be found, is accessible. So there are licenses that allow researchers to access the data, is interoperable, and primarily is reusable. These are really sort of the pillars of open science. Digital skills underpin a more open and transparent research life cycle. And I think very important in the context of this research infrastructure is as wide participation is tailored and scaled to the needs of the diverse disciplines. We have an annual conference, but I'm going to skip this quickly. One of the activities we do is advocacy. So there are LIBER representatives serving on the European Commission Open Science Policy Platform. And we are working with our working groups on responding to proposed legislations and presenting the view of the libraries to politicians and other stakeholders. Can I have some silence there? Thank you. So one thing is the EU copyright reform, which I wanted to mention. I mean, we have been doing a lot of work in Brussels and working with the community. Somehow, you're certainly all aware that on the 12th of September, the European Parliament has voted to approve the proposed change to the copyright reform. LIBER was on the one hand, very happy because part of the articles actually will allow libraries to better preserve, digitize, and share the collections. But at the same time, there are very deep concerns about the lack of support for things such as text and data mining and artificial intelligence. We believe that these technologies are essential for the sort of accessing data and information which researchers need. Now I'm moving to open science, and what I wanted to say is that we have actually published an open science roadmap. I have 4 or 5 copies here with me, so if you're interested in this, you can pick one up. These are specifically targeting libraries. But so now on the open science thing, we heard about that already. Open science is not only open access to publications that were mentioned before. It's actually, a sort of embracing concept where everything is open. So it includes open data, open software, open peer reviews, and various things, and all this actually across the whole research cycle. So starting from the analysis and publications and review up to the data gather, up to the reuse of this data. I'm not going to talk in detail about open science. We heard about the Open Science Cloud, which is actually aiming to provide the infrastructure to enable open science in Europe. But although the wheels are in motion, there are still many changes required, not only technical, but I think most important at the policy and cultural and the business level, which are still required. So something about open access, which is an important element in the transition to open science. And open access primarily for us in the librarian community, but I believe also, you know, as we heard today in relation to open air, for instance, is primarily the possibility to have access to publications, so, you know, mostly journals or books. Now, I think the main issues here, I don't know how many in the room are familiar really with the open access movement. And in fact, I would like to ask you to raise your hand if you are, you know, familiar with it. So I see really a few hands. I think the important thing here that we should understand is that research has always been open, and it is open. But the big issue is that researchers get their career, and they, you know, they get promoted, they become professors, etc., only depending on the publications that they produce. And most of all, not depending on the quality of the publications, but on the impact of the journals in which they are publishing. And these publications are very expensive for the readers. I mean, you know, universities, libraries, and research institutions pay a lot of money in subscriptions to these journals. So basically, the problem really that is being addressed by the open access movement is that research outputs, rather than being freely available, they're actually only available behind paywalls. That's one point. Second point is that for libraries in particular, has become really not sustainable anymore to pay so much money for subscriptions. And there are trends in some countries in Europe where they actually, you know, at the national level, they are starting to, I would say, boycott the big publications. It's not the reader, not actually completely free. In open access, most of the time is the author who pays, and this concept of APC is sort of a contribution, a fee that the authors have to pay to the journal for publishing their articles. But on the other hand, these APC, so these author processing charges, are not that expensive, although, you know, they can be unaffordable for individual researchers, and somebody's got to pay, so it's either the research or the research institution. There are various so-called routes, so alternative models to open access: green, gold, hybrid. I'm not going in detail of those things, but they have sort of different business models behind that, and also the different ways of accessing to the research. Well, what I think is also important to say is that although the open access movement has been there for many years, and also, you know, projects such as Open Air have made a lot of progress, the take-up of open access is still very slow, and it's far from, you know, being ubiquitous. As I said, is not really free, and I think, in my view, the most important thing is the significant lack of incentive. So as I said before, researchers very often do not have enough incentive to publish on open access journals, because their career is determined by, say, high impact factor journals and so on. So, but there is something which I actually would like to focus on today, and it's a kind of breakthrough initiative which was taken very recently. It was launched on the 4th of September, and it's called Plan S, and Coalition S is the coalition that sort of underlines this plan. I'd like to ask, can you please raise your hand if you heard about this before? Right, so this is an initiative that was taken by, the Commission has a very serious objective. The Commission would like to make open access a reality by 2020, as you can read there. So has set up, Robert Jan Smits has actually been appointed as the EU open access envoy. And he's taken that initiative together with Science Europe to gather a number of national funders together, and they made this plan to accelerate the transition to full and immediate open access to scientific publications in Europe. On the 4th of September, when this was launched, there were 11 countries who subscribed to this plan. Now there are 13 actually national funders, and more are joining. So the underlying idea was, because there are not enough incentives for publication, and actually open access, as I said, is not really free, that funders, those who fund research, have an actually important role to play if they actually make their funds conditional. So basically, there are a number of principles in this Plan S, and the first one is the first that you read there, between brackets. I think it's interesting to read it out. It says that all scientific publications that result from research funded by public grants, provided by funders who participate, must be published in compliant open access journals or on compliant open access platforms. So that means that if you get the money from those funding bodies, you are forced to publish on open access journals. Otherwise, you don't get the money. And there are also a number of other interesting principles. So I've actually, there are, I think, if I remember correctly, there are 11 other principles. I think the most interesting ones are the one that says, so under this plan, the authors should retain the copyright of their publication and not the publisher. I mean, it doesn't mean that a scientist cannot, who makes a discovery and wants to register a patent cannot do that. But I mean, if you are going to, if you intend to publish your result of your research, you can do that. And under this scheme, you should retain the copyright of that publication rather than the publisher. Another thing, as I mentioned before, so open access is actually not free because it's the author or the institution that the authors belongs to that pays. These authoring processing charges vary between 1,000 and 5,000 euro, depending on the journals. So let's say in average, it's actually approximately 2,000 euro. Still, it's money that possibly the researchers could not afford to pay. So another important point is that for when relevant and when possible, it will be the funders themselves and the institutions who should pay the fees and not the actual scientists. Or when this is not possible, the funders will agree amongst themselves about capping and standardizing these processing fees. Another thing is that the hybrid model of open access, which actually means it's a very strange combination of subscription and open access, will not be accepted. And I think the last point, which is also interesting, is that funders will take responsibility for monitoring the compliance, so that making sure that actually this is going to happen. So, I mean, the way we see it in the libraries world, we still have to see, how it will take up, because it's as I said, it's a brand new initiative, but we have the feeling that it's going to be, really a game changer, and will change the way significantly. Will be, being a strong boost for open access in Europe. Institutional repositories, so libraries can actually help with the development of these institutional repositories, and make sure that they meet the requirements provided set by the funders, and directly facilitate open access as publishers of information, rather than just curating it or providing access for long-term preservation. one thing I was hoping was to actually find some information about the open access in the region here. I don't have any study, but I suppose, and this is why there are a few question marks there. I suppose that most scientists in the region, but it's also the case in Europe, so I think this is are still stuck with the subscription model. That there is limited access to open access publications as consumers, so that probably the information about open access publications and availability is not that much, but that's one point I make there. There's an importance on raising awareness about open access and open access journals. So one thing is to look at the directory of open access journals, the second link down there. Another is a resource which can be useful to find out what's out there in terms of open access. Being able for a scientist to know where to find the information, but also how they can contribute. So what I think is important is for libraries, institutions, and researchers in the region is to get together in order to change the culture. Research funders and institutions should possibly, fund that in the Plan S, because really funders have a strong leverage in making sure that this can happen by mandating open access and open science policies, making their funding conditional from a researcher actually producing in open science data and research. And finally, I think it's also important for infrastructure providers in this region to make sure that they, and this is what I see EaPEC Connect doing somehow, the network, the storage facilities, the repositories, the data curation and data stewardship instruments. So build the facilities that would allow your researchers to be active contributors of open science. Last thing is just a sort of advertisement, because next week is the International Open Access Week, and so that means that there are a number of events which people can follow online. I looked in the region. There are 2 organized in Ukraine, but you can Google for Open Access Week and you'll find more information. And yeah, this is how I wanted to conclude my presentation.
So the next speaker is Tomasz Parkola from the PSNC, who will present Cultural Heritage Online, No Time to Lose. So the floor is yours, Tomasz.
So hello everyone. So yes, I work for PSNC, which was founded in 1993. The institution is affiliated to the Institute of Bioorganic Chemistry of the Polish Academy of Sciences, and we have approximately 300 employees at PSNC. PSNC is a leading operator of Polish infrastructure with almost 9,000 kilometers of fibers in Poland and also in Europe. And in my presentation, I will talk about cultural heritage, because I work not directly with networking, but rather with systems for or network services related to cultural heritage. So when I talk about cultural heritage, I really like to stress 3 critical elements, in my opinion, which are digitization, preservation, and access. So what I mean by those? So you need to digitize as a content holding institution to preserve or secure your physical items, because sometimes you have physical items which are well, deteriorating or damaging because of the acidic paper or because of UV rays. So this is one of the reasons that you would like to digitize and you have no time to lose, because otherwise you will lose the physical items. Thanks to the digitization, you can have digital representation of the physical items and you can keep them for future. But also, if you'd like to share your unique or most valuable objects, you can do that via digitization. But once you have those digital assets in your infrastructure, on your hard drive, for example, you have to think about preservation. So long-term preservation means that you would like to keep those digital materials accessible over time in 10, 20, and 50 years. And here you have to think about aging of formats or media storage devices. For example, now probably no one from teenagers knows what floppy disk is. And you also, on the other hand, have to think about security setup, I mean, from intruders, or you have to introduce redundancy in order not to lose your digital assets. Once you have this all managed, I mean, once you are able to professionally digitize and preserve your digital content, you can think of making this, making those objects available online for the broader community. You can, thanks to that, promote your institution. You can contribute to cultural heritage, but you can also support economy in the sense that you can provide those materials to researchers or to creative industries, like in tourism or other sectors. But that's not even all, because you can also take advantage of those digitization-related activities or cultural heritage related activities to build community around your institution or around your content, because there are many examples in Poland also for this, and I listed 4 here: social centers for digitization, mobile digitization center, collection days, and transcribathon events. And one of the very interesting initiatives here is the social centers for digitization. This is really something that is impressive for me because we have in Poland several this kind of centers, social centers for digitization, and they are able to build really quite large community of people that volunteer and digitize objects for free for specific institutions. On the picture you have a club of 100,000, it's called 100,000 Club. So it means that each person here digitized at least 100,000 pages. Altogether, they digitize more than 1 million pages in this center. Usually, those people come from, for example, from third-age universities, and they really are very much involved in the work. I really would like to say the quote from one of the volunteers, or 2 quotes in fact. So he said that in one of the newspapers, local newspapers, it's in fact near the Gdańsk in Poland, that what we do is similar to what in the Middle Ages did the monks who rewrote the books, but we are a million of times more productive. And the other quote is, I like the statement that the book cannot be a prison for the thoughts it contains. We'll release these thoughts and make them available to a wider audience. So, well, I think that it's really engaging those people to contribute to those efforts, to making to make the cultural heritage really online and available. But obviously, not every institution is able to manage the whole digitization workflow or digital library system and so on. So this is why, especially in Poland, where for smaller institutions it's a trouble, there are regional initiatives. It's called regional digital libraries, which in fact are a kind of collaboration between several institutions. There is usually one leading institution and others contribute to build the digital library. So as you can see on the screen, there are, for example, 3 which build regional digital library portal. They can also have their own smaller portals which present only their digital assets, and usually also those regional digital libraries use infrastructure provided by NRENs. So for example, in Wielkopolska region, PSNC provides infrastructure for Wielkopolska Digital Library. So this is also a good example of how you can collaborate, and even small institutions can provide their content online. So just to give you some examples of digital libraries, those are from Polish, screenshots from Polish digital libraries. This is Jagiellonian Digital Library from Krakow, one of the biggest ones in Poland, more than 500,000 digital objects. We have also smaller ones, like this one. This is Digital Museum, I would say, from theater from Łódź. They provide materials from their spectacles that they perform in the theater. And also we have repositories that present digital items on the map in the context of geolocalized items. This is a map of testimonies from Second World War and with borders before the war. There are also obviously search results with filtering options, and we are trying to provide attractive look and feel for the content itself. So because majority of digital libraries in Poland are based on our tools, I mean tools that are developed by PSNC, I just wanted to give you an overview of how we envision such activities. I mean, what we propose is to have or components. One is for managing the digitization workflow, which is called DLAB, so it handles all the steps of digitization and keeps track of each item that goes through the digitization process. Then we have a component which allows to provide those materials online, so this is called the Libra or the Museum. And also one which is responsible for archiving, DRCO, which archives digital objects for long term according to OAIS model, internationally recognized model for long-term preservation. And the deployments can be simple but also complicated. Just to give you an example of, these are state transitions of activities in digitization task in the DLAB system, so there can be many transitions, but you don't have to use all of them, obviously. Altogether, in digital libraries, in our Pioneer network, we have approximately 130 deployments, and those deployments are related to digital libraries, museum, or archives, but they are not always public. Sometimes we have deployments which are internal repositories or knowledge bases. Those activities were started in 2002 with first regional digital library in Poland, Wielkopolska Digital Library. And altogether, all digital libraries which provide access to 5 million of digital objects. So, as you can see, there are many digital libraries available in Poland. It would be hard for the user to go through each of them and search, for example, to some interesting to him information. So this is why in 2007, we initiated a countrywide aggregator of metadata. So this is FBC, this is a screenshot of FBC, and this system gathers metadata from all digital libraries in Poland, via well-known interoperable protocols. It gathers those metadata and provides, among other features, search feature, so that the user can go on this portal and search through all digital objects from Poland in this case. And as I said, in total we have more than 5 million of digital objects. And here you have, you can see content providers to FBC. So each rectangle shows a specific digital library, and the bigger the rectangle is, the more digital items it provides. So we have, for example, more or less, I think, 7 really large digital libraries. They are usually regional, I guess, mostly regional. We have also several dozens of medium size, which has like several thousands of digital objects, and there are many smaller ones as well. But FBC is not only about search feature. It obviously aggregates metadata from Polish digital libraries, as I said, but it also does normalization and enrichment of this gathered information. So it tries to make a common, let's say, for example, metadata scheme to search through those items. But it also communicates with other systems, like central library catalog in Poland, or obviously Google searching mechanism, and Europeana, which is a European digital library, one level up from the FBC, so national aggregator. So Europeana is on a European level. It gathers metadata from all over the Europe, from national aggregators like FBC, and then provides, for example, search through all items which are available in Europe in digital form. But obviously, Europeana is not only the search engine. They have multiple other activities around it. So just to give you 2 examples that I already mentioned before in my presentation, which can also build a community around your institution. Those 2 examples are collection days. So they try to have events where they invite citizens to bring some items from specific period of time, for example, or related to some specific event in the history. In Poznań, we had a collection day related to fall of the communism times. So people brought, I don't know, coins from this time, or old documents, glasses which were used then. And during this event, we digitized those items and provided them online. So this is a kind of keeping history recorded in digital form. And also transcribathon events. Those are a kind of marathons for transcribing images with text to a machine-readable text. So this is also organized and brings people together to work and contribute to cultural heritage. What I'd like to also stress is that at PSNC we would not be able to do this everything, I mean those systems and support cultural heritage without collaboration or international collaboration. Because, for example, what we do in the context of international collaboration is we keep together with Europeana Foundation, which builds Europeana portal. We act as a technical partner in many projects related to Europeana. We are also founding member of EaPEC Center of Competence in Digitization. We are affiliated member of the Open Preservation Foundation, which is about long-term preservation. And we are also founding member of DARIA PL, and a member of Daria ERIC, which is about digital humanities, and also member of DataSite Consortium, which provides digital objects identifiers or accounts, DOI accounts for institutions. And to conclude my presentation, I'd like to stress that mass digitization projects are obviously either undertaken by many institutions in Europe, but for me the key element there are those three aspects of cultural heritage: online digitization, preservation, and online access. And major challenges which are related to that is, for first, good organization of work, and then direct access to content via interoperable protocols so that external systems can use them further. And this is also connected, wide promotion and adoption of best practices is also connected with the two above. Thank you very much. If there are any questions.
Any questions?
Yes. What do you use automatic recognition tools, optical recognition or optical transcription?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do use them. In fact, EaPEC Center of Competence in Digitization is about optical character recognition as well. So we use different tools for different materials. And we also have some tools which allow you to enhance OCR results. So, for example, to correct them, to have better, let's say, textual representation.
Thank you.
Any more questions? So thank you. Thank you for the all presenters. And I will give a floor to Leonie for announcement.
Thank you. There's one presentation missing, so we have to skip one presentation. That's the one on cybersecurity, because we had some technical difficulties here and doesn't fit into the timeline now, because we have to finish at 5 o'clock sharp. So unfortunately, we had to skip this. So I have one more that of the morning. So workshop. So according to the new plan, we will start at 9 o'clock in this room with the lightning talks. And the workshops will take place in the afternoon. And I think the schedule will be distributed tomorrow. So we will start with lightning talks at 9 o'clock, and then tomorrow we will receive a new schedule. So that was it for today. Enjoy your evening, and I'm looking forward to meet you again here at the conference Re-Energize tomorrow morning. Goodbye.